Here we go. There we go. Lovely new shirt. The traditional hat. Oh, hello. My name is Daniel, and I've got to, well, Peru this time, which just looks like my new bedroom. You know what? Seeing as this is kind of like a safari thingy, let's not use the traditional hat, and let's get a little sun hat, which honestly kind of looks like a jazz hat. So, without further ado, let's go on with the new review, and please, feel right at home in Peru.
The filming Daniel.
Hey guys, it's Daniel here. Yeah, we're kind of dropping the traditional Paddington hat that I used from my past few Paddington reviews, and this time, since this is a movie taking place in the jungle, I thought I'd use like some sort of like, it might be safari, but no it's not, because I feel like safari hats are a bit more circular with like ropes around, but this is just kind of like a hat or something. I believe they wore in the 40s. But today, I'm going to be doing another review. And unfortunately, the thing is, I was supposed to have this review to be the first one to be filmed in this new location. But a bit of like mix up with the reviews went, and my World Gone Mad review got in place first. But still, I'm here regardless, in the new location. I'm really excited to do more reviews in this new location. So today, I thought that because I've reviewed the first two Paddington movies already, I have yet to review the third one. So today, I'm going to be reviewing the third installment in the franchise, Paddington in Peru. So Paddington in Peru follows, of course, our favourite, adorable, kind-hearted little bear Paddington, who is now an official member of the British community because he's gotten his own passport. So now he can go anywhere in the world and people will know that he's British. I'm not just saying that, they make a joke about that in the movie. And then, one day, he gets a mysterious letter telling him that Aunt Lucy is apparently not herself in the home for retired bears. So, Paddington and the Browns make their way to Paddington's original home, Peru, in the jungle. And when they get to the home of retired bears, he finds out that Aunt Lucy is gone. But where could she be? So now it's up to Paddington and his human family, the Browns, to go on their adventure to find Aunt Lucy, and along the way coming across a hunter, played by Antonio Banderas, and discovering the true nature of what Peru has to offer. Now, before I talk about what I think of this one, I should probably discuss what I think of the previous two Paddington movies. The first Paddington film I really liked, I really enjoyed it. It has so much heart, it has personality and visuals, the scope of London, the well done British comedy that they use, and overall just a delightful protagonist slash titled character. I will admit that the character problems for the Browns can be a bit on the nose sometimes, and the CGI character discovering shock value with current modern things that humans use do kind of feel reminiscent of films like Elf and Bean and the Smurfs. However, despite those cliches and on-the-nose problems, I still found it to be a very delightful movie. The second one I actually really liked even more. I definitely really enjoyed the second one. It had more heart, it had more personality, it had so many things going for it, displaying the moral of being a fantastically kind and wonderful person that brings a community together that Paddington definitely shows in this movie. And it has definitely the best villain out of all the Paddington movies, Phoenix Buchanan, played by Hugh Grant. Such an excellent villain, and honestly, despite him being a villain, he has definitely good motivations for why he's doing what he's doing, because he has his one-man show that he wants to do to be taken seriously as an actor again, but he needs money to fund it, so that's why he frames Paddington so he can steal the jewels. So, despite him being like, ooh, he's an evil person, at the same time, we understand what he's doing, and also, Hugh Grant just celebrates every scene with joy, and it makes him kind of endearing as an antagonist. So now we have this film, Paddington in Peru, which definitely has a few changes. It has a different location, which it's not being taking place in London this time. It's been taking place in Peru. It has a different director, because the original director for the first two films went on to direct Wonka, and it's the first one to not have Sally Hawkins as Mary Brown. Instead, they get, I think it's Emily Mortimer? I'll put her name right here. They got a new actress to play Mary Brown. So I was like, okay, well, there's definitely a lot of changes, but it's Paddington, so I really hope to see what they're going to do. They have Antonio Banderas in the movie, from SpongeBob movie, and the Shrek films, and I was just really excited to see Paddington in Peru. And after finally seeing the movie, after watching all the trailers, including that one that got me addicted to I'm on Top of the World by Imagine Dragons, it's one of the things I remember the most about that second trailer. I have to say, I really like it. I think it's a good movie. I'm just unsure whether or not I think it's the weakest one out of the three. But, you know, being the weakest out of the three and yet still being really good is definitely a good sign of how amazingly genuine this franchise is. So first off, let's talk about the visuals. The visual scope of Peru is so beautiful to look at. It has that wonderful, like, colourful safari-ness. It has green, and it has, like, sky, and the water looks beautiful. And it just looked like, you know, characters going on holiday or something. It definitely felt like you were getting into the bit of the summer spirit, which this movie was released in November/January around that time, so it wasn't really summer then. But I definitely say around springtime, summertime, this is definitely a cozy movie to watch, because it has so many beautiful sunny landscapes, and it also adds to the kind of adventurous element of this movie, which definitely feels like a nod to films like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and also, I'm going to say it, kind of a few Dora the Explorer episodes. Dora. Okay, I'll stop. I don't know why I did that. But this definitely, I want to say this is the most colourful Paddington movie, but I could be wrong, but I think it might be. But it definitely has a lot of colour, and the various monuments and cultures that this film explores, with like different locations that they have to go through, and coming across some potential hints to some treasure, is definitely very well made and well scoped and well filmed. The score and the music is also really great to listen to. It has still that amazing heart and emotional tendencies that they have whenever they're having a musical score in some of the film's more tender moments, which definitely just hit me in the heart, because, you know, this is Paddington we're talking about, especially a theme that plays during the end. Love that. And also, there are quite a few songs in the movie as well. I don't really remember much of them, besides, well, I guess I did find Olivia Colman that played the Mother Nun. She does have this song that comes out of nowhere, but, you know, Olivia has a good singing voice, so that was very nice. There's also quite a few action sequences with our characters having to go through multiple areas to try and get from danger, and having to slick through some very high-risking stunts that could get them kind of injured, but they still try to make it through, and they do have their adorable charms. One of the best moments that was shown in the trailer is when Paddington and Antonio Banderas' character are trying to make it through this maze, and you have this giant rocking ball that's coming after them, which obviously is a nod to Indiana Jones, and that scene was just well done, and, you know, just the rivalry between the two characters there was very exciting and very entertaining to watch. And the performances were all fantastically, with, of course, one of the major ones being Ben Whisshaw's performance as Paddington once again. He still comes across as so, like, lovely and fuzzy in the role. Like, just all the lines he says it with so much heart and so much realistic seriousness to them that just adds a gooey centre to Paddington every time. We also have the human actors, they're still fantastic. Hugh Bonneville is still great as Mr. Brown. The kids are still great. And, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Emily Mortimer, I still think that's I'll put her name right here, replacing Sally Hawkins as Miss Brown. Yeah, they do look different, and maybe some people might find it a bit distracting, but I personally still think that she still kept the same naivety and still innocence that Sally gave to her Miss Brown, which I think that she did a fantastic job. And honestly, if I closed my eyes and tried to imagine both the characters talking, I probably wouldn't know which is which because they're both equally convincing in the role. Julie Walters as Miss Bird, oh my god, I love this character. She can be so in the head, but still clever about tactics and stuff, and so much charisma and giving out so many witty lines that just are so funny, and they gave me so much like, oh, this is a joy to watch. I love Miss Bird, man. She's one of my favourites in this trilogy. And in my opinion, the cherry on top for this film's performances has to be Antonio Banderas, who plays the Hunter character in the film. He really does a fantastic job at hamming up his performance, which honestly reminded me so much of his performance as Burger Beard in the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water. He gives off this kind of like theatre pantomime style performance that, in my opinion, made it look like he was having so much fun with the role. But here, there's moments where there are hallucinations and visions of some of his previous ancestors, and Antonio Banderas plays those ancestors, and we're just seeing multiple Antonio Banderases everywhere and talking amongst each other. That just, oh my god, like, it was so entertaining. And Antonio just, he stole the movie, okay? He completely stole the movie and made him come off as a very entertaining antagonist, which, oh my god, did I spoil that? Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, it's not really a spoiler that his character is an antagonist, because the trailers did show that he was an antagonist, because there are shots in the trailer where he's chasing after Paddington, and he's like, "Where are you, bear?" And then, so just, put two and two together, okay, he's going to probably turn out to be a threat. So it's not really a spoiler, but I think that he performed his character very well, and it helped me to kind of see a little bit of a adorable side to him, but just being entertained by him throughout the entire thing. There are many moments where he does kind of feel a little bit similar to Phoenix Buchanan because of the multiple personas and showing off a theatre kind of style performance and showing versatility. But here, it's actually physical performances, whereas with Phoenix, he was kind of just talking to himself. But here, it was fantastic, and Antonio was fantastic. One more thing that I will say about this film is that there is a final scene in this film. I'm not going to spoil it, but it was so beautifully handled. The music is fantastic. The performances were fantastic. Like, the human performance of one of our characters having a little bit of a teary moment in that scene was just so beautiful, and it takes us back to the beginning of the trilogy, of showing what the entire trilogy has been about, the connection between a bear and a human family. That just made it feel like, man, great callbacks, and just, you know, it reminded us about what we loved about this trilogy as a whole. I mean, come think of it, I know that there's going to be a fourth one because they have mentioned it, but this scene feels like it's a scene that belongs in the final feature in this trilogy. Which, honestly, I keep falling for this. I keep thinking that the third film in a trilogy is going to be the last one, but you know, this isn't going to be the last one, so we're going to get another one. But unfortunately, as much as I really enjoyed this film, I do have some issues with it, and it kind of feels a little bit downgraded compared to the first two films. One of the major problems that does get on my nerves about this film is that, once again, just like the first film, the Browns' issues in this film can be very on the nose. But this one, it kind of turns it a bit up to 15 a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have an issue with the Browns having problems again, because, you know, a family always has problems. But we do have the moments where they do kind of come off as a bit on the nose, and they have to kind of spell it out to the audience, even though we kind of already can tell what the issues are. And for me, whenever they tried to make these moments come off as humorous, it just wasn't too funny, and it made the characters come off a little bit obnoxious in these moments. I mean, I love Miss Brown, she's a fantastic character, so endearing, but there are a few moments where I feel like her character can be a little bit, well, stupid. Especially this one moment where she thinks something's coming out of the woods. She's like, I got a twig and I'm not afraid to use it. A twig, and she goes like, ah, into the forest, and it turns out, like, I mean, I know Miss Brown is a bit naive, and I do really love that about her character, but in this film, it came off as a little bit less naive and just a little bit, well, dumb. I felt like that was a little bit dumb on her half, but, you know, I can't really say the character is dumb, it's just that was a pretty dumb scene. And there are also a few moments where the characters are talking and being on the nose about their issues that, in my opinion, it felt a little bit too preachy, and it's something I feel like the second film kind of fixed a little, because, yeah, they show they have problems, but the problems only show up a few times, are only mentioned a few times, because their main objective in that second film was to get Paddington's name cleared, which I think that the second film did a fantastic job improving that. Here, it kind of just goes back to what it was in the first film again, except I feel like it kind of gets a little bit too obnoxious and preachy this one than it did in the first one. Speaking of a bit of obnoxiousness, the comedy is not as strong here as it was in the first few films, because, again, I feel like that some of the moments in this film wasn't really written as funny or as clever as the first films. I can't really say exactly how, because, you know, I didn't find a lot of the comedy that memorable. It wasn't as funny as it was in the first two films. That's all I have to say. Now, I mentioned earlier that I really enjoyed Antonio Banderas' character, and, you know, the trailers showed that he was an antagonist, so it wasn't a spoiler, and he was very entertaining in the role. I can't exactly say I was especially interested in the other villain in the film, which I won't give away because this character is meant to be a surprise villain, so there's a big twist that honestly isn't really that cleverly hidden. And I will say this, I'm going to have to say something about it. I did kind of spoil this for me. I knew about this twist, so there wasn't really much of a reaction there. But come think of it, from the trailers, I kind of knew that this character was going to turn out to be a surprise villain because, you know, the mystery surrounding Aunt Lucy's disappearance and this character's connection with it, you'd be like, put two and two together, okay, they're probably going to turn out to be this secret surprise villain. And even in the film itself, knowing the twist, it still came off as a bit obvious because the characters' like facial expressions can come off as a little bit too over the top and very suspicious. And the film even uses the word suspicious multiple times whenever a character is interacting with this surprise villain. And just seeing the clues coming together, it's just like, okay, it's obvious this character's a villain. And not only that, but the villain's motivations behind their actions is not interesting. This character's just after some treasure and after some money and fame and gold and all that stuff, and honestly, in my opinion, I feel like the first two films handled it better because the second film's villain, Phoenix, again, like I said, I think is the best villain because he actually has the best motivations for why he needs, like, money, because he needs it to fund his one-man show on stage so that he could be taken seriously as an actor again. Of course, this is for himself, and it is a wrong thing to do, but Hugh Grant's performance and the character's motivations kind of make him come off as quite endearing as an antagonist. And even if you don't want to give motivations, you could keep it simple. You could, like the villain in Paddington 1, Nicole Kidman's character, she just wanted fame and riches too, but she was fun to hate because she had an aggressive and cruel side to her that makes us want to see her get her comeuppance. This one is just like kind of a bit of a weasel and not funny and doesn't really have good motivations. They just want the gold. That's it. So I will admit that out of the four Paddington villains, Nicole Kidman, Hugh Grant, Antonio Banderas, and this one I will say is the weakest out of the bunch. And the last issue I had with this film is that they present a little bit of a story element about how the return to Peru is kind of affecting Paddington in a way, and kind of like showing a little bit of confusing nature inside of him about where does he belong? Does he belong here? Or does he still belong with his human family in London? And there's like a little bit of conflict. And I think that that adds to a lot of emotional storytelling. But it felt like that kind of story was only just briefly mentioned like once, twice, or 3 times. Like very separate short sections of the movie that in my opinion I feel like could have had a little bit more development. But they kind of just brushed that kind of little story aside to focus on them trying to get to this place to potentially find Aunt Lucy, which just adds to a lot of like moments that weren't as strong or funny as the original few films. And I feel like a lot of the heart that is taking place in this movie mainly belongs to the story that I feel like could have been more developed and more central focus, but we didn't get that. Again, I enjoyed the adventure element, I just didn't feel like that the story elements in this movie were as strong as the first 2. But overall guys, despite my problems, I still really enjoyed Paddington in Peru. Even though it doesn't have as much of the gripping nature as the first 2, I still think it had some emotional moments. It had a few funny moments, not always but a few. The characters are still likeable. The performances were still like a blast to watch, and I do think it still had a lot of the same personality and visual style as the previous Paddington movies. And that's why I'll give Paddington in Peru a 4 out of 5. It's definitely worth the watch, and if you love the first 2 films and have yet to see this one, definitely go check it out if you have some interest in it. And it's on Netflix, so you can definitely watch it. But anyway guys, what do you think about this film? Do you love it? Do you hate it? And what's your favourite movie that takes place in a jungle? Let me know in the comment section below. More videos to come, and I'm Daniel reviewing movies, TV shows, doing videos. And please, feel right at home in both London and Peru. I'm definitely feeling right at home in this new bedroom. Till then, peace out, man.